That clock is wrong.
Well, I've got it on the clock, so I guess we'll go ahead and open our meeting.
As the chairman, doesn't matter.
All right. Just like to recognize that in place of Mr. Vermont, we have Kristen Blanchard here as our legal counsel, and appreciate your being here.
Glad to be here.
And thank you. We will go ahead and ask for approval of the minutes from our January 21st meeting. Are there any additions or corrections?
I move the minutes be accepted.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second. Motion by Mrs. Flanagan, second by Ms. Hirschway. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those are approved, and we will move on and ask for a treasurer's report from Ms. Linda Eis.
Thank you and good afternoon. We'll look at the financial statements for the period ending January 31 of 2016. You'll recall we talked at the last board meeting that we were going to have timing and financial aid disbursements, and that's very clear on the graph that you can see the difference between January of this year as compared to January of last year. And so at the end of January for this year, we are at $7.8 million, and that will catch itself up come February because financial aid was dispersed in the first week of February. And just to kind of let you know, of course, we're always monitoring our cash balances. As of this morning, our cash balance is at $17.3 million. So as I've stated before, it's in flux daily, all day long. When we look at the statement of net position, total assets are $153 million. Total liabilities are at $77 million, and this gives us a net position of $76 million. The next statement that we'll look at is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. And we always look at the difference column, and once again you can see a lot of the timing differences that show up on this particular statement looking at the difference column. The state and local grants, that's timing from the financial aid disbursements. Scholarships, you can see the $8.4 million difference there, again timing. And the Pell Grants of 5.7. So once again, all of that will catch itself up come the February statements. So when we look at this, again, I want to point out that operations are really doing pretty well. Where we don't have a whole lot of variances. A few things that we've talked about is some of the health insurance and the utilities. Obviously, our physical plant is much larger this year compared to last year with the construction that we've had on campus. And then the capital appropriations, the state reimbursement for the Reynolds Hall project, as I mentioned last month, is going very well. Those reimbursements are coming in very quickly and very timely. That really concludes my reports. Does anyone have any questions?
If there are no questions, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So made.
Have a motion by Mr. McCumber. Do I hear a second? Second. Have a second by Mr. Gibson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The motion is approved. Now call upon our Vice President for Business Affairs, Mr. Rob Houston.
Thank you. I'll give you a very brief construction report. There's only a couple of things working right now. The construction project with Reynolds Hall remodeling, the architects are finalizing the construction drawings. They're about 50% complete. As soon as they are complete, which should be by the end of March, that we put out the bid by the contractor, we will begin light demo of the third floor of Reynolds Hall within the next couple of weeks. And when I mean light demo, it's nothing major that will cause a lot of disruption to classes. That major demo will happen between the breaks, between the end of spring semester and the start of summer school. The trail project with the city notified us that FEMA has received the application, so now it's back in FEMA's court. So we'll have to wait and see how that, wait for them to give us the approval. As far as budget, the budget process is progressing. We had a board budget audit committee meeting, subcommittee meeting this morning discussing the tuition rate, and that'll be discussed at a later time in this meeting. Any questions?
If there are no questions, we thank you for your report.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our athletic director, Jared Bruggeman.
Thank you, appreciate it. Item 1, at the last board meeting I did mention that we had finished up our agreed upon procedures audit, and so you do have a copy of that. It's actually this document. You don't need to really take time now to go through it, but I will say there were 37 categories reviewed with 106 components. The areas that were reviewed, just a few: ticket sales, financial aid, in-kind contributions, camp revenues, endowment income, spirit groups, recruiting, team travel, equipment, medical insurance are just a few of those. Out of those 106 components, we had 106 findings without exception. So that's actually amazing. And to maybe anecdotally give you a sense of that, when I was hired at Northern Arizona University, initially the reason why I was brought in is that we had 58 findings out of 106. So they brought me in to go through that. It took about 3 years just to rectify a few of those, let alone all of them. So it's pretty impressive to know that we have such a...
How many findings do they have when you left?
99 out of 100. No. That's interesting enough. But there needs to be a lot of kudos with that. It goes to reflect on the business office here, not just in athletics, but also on campus. Becca Diskin with financial aid and admissions, and Rachel Burleson, who runs stuff out of our department, and even the foundation, which a lot of these components are related to the foundation. So there's a lot of people that make that happen to be so successful. So you do have the report, and you can feel free to read it, but no findings makes it easy to read, which is fantastic. Item 2, there's a comprehensive survey going out right now from the NCAA, and we can make sure you get a copy of it as well. They're reviewing financial aid as far as what they want to do in Division II to maybe more match the Division I model that's out there. So that is intended for anybody in leadership positions, including some folks over in financial aid and vice presidents and anyone that really has to weigh in on that. So we'll make sure you have an opportunity for that survey. And I do anticipate new legislation coming out next year regarding financial aid and actually deregulating it. It's over-regulated. Student athlete receives a scholarship at a local high school for whatever that scholarship would be. We have to go back and figure out what it's for. Is there a criteria that involves athletics? What's the GPA? How does it correlate to the university? It's a lot of work for something that's $300, and the reality is Division II doesn't have the Division I money that's out there, so why are we over-regulating? So I do anticipate that coming up. I do want to say that we have Senior Day for our basketball programs February 27th. It's also, we're playing Pittsburgh State here at home, as well as it's Fan Appreciation Day, so there are a lot of activities going on. If you were at the last home game, we also had a lot of activities with the diaper dash and all sorts of things going on, letter jacket awards, so please plan on attending that if you're able. The Student Athlete Advisory Committee, SAC, is the acronym for that. They held a Miracle Minute at basketball, which puts us at, they raised $291. That puts us right around $1,300 for the year for Make-A-Wish Foundation. Our goal is $2,000. We've still got some time left, so I anticipate we'll hit that mark. The last, last 2 items. Linebacker Appreciation Event was held at the last home game prior to the women's game. We had about 100, and I think it was about 150 linebackers or other supporters show up for that event. They have a chili feed, and I want to thank Elisa, Bryant for working so hard on that. The linebackers really appreciate that time to be together, have some food, and just it helps, I think, us retain them in the future as part of our retention process. So thanks to Elisa for that. And then finally, the last component is we have MOSO Trivia Night coming up. I know some of you plan on attending, but if you haven't decided yet, we could always use some members of the board there as well. It's on February 25th. We have a social from 5:45 to 6:30. 6:30 to 8:30 is the actual competition.
Do you have a board team yet?
We do not have a board team yet.
Oh, we didn't get a board team.
So it's faculty enjoy trying to beat up on the board team, just so you know.
So we'll be in touch with you.
So anyway, please, if you're able to, it's a really nice event. It's not that long. There's food, drink involved as far as in really good camaraderie, and it's just a really good time. And it goes pretty efficiently too. So if you haven't had a chance to attend, we'd encourage it. You'll see several teams around town, some doctors, some lawyers, some pastors, whatever. They all seem to come and have a good time. So we look forward to it. So anyway, That does conclude my report. There's much more involved in the report if you have any questions.
If there are no questions, we thank you for your report. Moving on, we'll have a report from Dr. Brad Hodson, Executive Vice President.
Good afternoon. You have my report in front of you, and while there's a lot of great information on there, including a fundraising update for Reynolds, I will focus on one item because we do have such a long agenda, and that is our spring 2016 enrollment. The 20th day was last Friday, and so we turned in our census data with a 3.93% increase in spring enrollment compared to last spring. You will recall we were up in the fall roughly 3%, and so that is not an addition to the fall. It's spring to spring compared to fall to fall. So 5,267 students enrolled as of close of business on Friday. That's up 199 students, and that's where that 3.93% comes from. There's some information there about where we believe that increase is coming from. You'll also note in the third bullet that credit hours were up over the last spring semester, 2.8%. And as we just talked in the budget meeting, we get paid based on credit hours, not on head count. And so we would, while we always enjoy seeing an increase in head count, it's an increase in the credit hours that provides the extra income to operate the institution. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How would this increase compare to our sister institutions?
Well, unlike fall data, spring data is not routinely reported, and I did some searching on some of our conference peers' websites, and many of them have put nothing out, which doesn't necessarily mean they're down, but if they're up, they should be talking about it. They should want to talk about it as we are. So
Most are flat or
yeah.
not much, so.
I've got a question. With the 206 students from 40 countries, are those students asked how they found out about Missouri Southern?
Yeah, we track how they became aware of our programs, and really with international students, there's a variety of ways. We have some agents that we're working with that promote the institution. Sometimes it's searching for specific academic programs that will bring them to Missouri Southern, but we do track how they found their way here.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Hodson, and we'll move on to a report from our Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Paula Carson.
Thank you so much. I do have some academic policies I'll be reviewing in just a few minutes, as well as a presentation on yours to lose. So I'm going to try and keep my my regular report here extra brief. I thought this month I would focus on telling you guys about work in progress, things that we are trying to accomplish, if not by the end of the semester, perhaps by the end of the summer, things that are going on for us. The first is that with discussion of the blueprint for higher ed in Missouri, there are a lot of implications for credentialed Missouri citizens, and credentials have been expanded to include not just bachelor's degrees and master's degrees, but these certificates. Certificates are a collection of courses embedded in a regular curriculum that can be pursued by existing students or by students who have already graduated and want to come back for career enhancing options, or by students who are not intended to pursue a baccalaureate degree, but actually just want to come and take those particular courses. So for a while prior to my arrival here, the faculty has been talking with Dr. Marble about the idea of a critical thinking certificate, which is not really just a piece of paper or an actual credential, but it is a body of courses around which students can take, and they can be more functional in the workplace. And it is about identifying problems, communicating well in a variety of different medium about those problems, and then solving those problems in a way that reflects really all the interests of the stakeholders. So the faculty has been deliberating it, thinking about what that would look like, and we have come up with our first draft that we have shared with the deans and with the key developers of that particular certificate. But as a result of doing that, we have come up with what we are going to propose as a framework for these certificates. So between 12 and 18 hours of student credit hours, we're probably going to be going to academic policies to ask for some sort of consideration with regard to if a student enrolls in the certificate but is not pursuing a baccalaureate degree, how many hours can they transfer if they at a later time decide to do that. But very, very excited because as we talked about in earlier meetings today, these certificates are a way for us to differentiate ourselves and to attract out of state. The other really appealing thing about these certificates is that they're interdisciplinary and they allow the units to work together, but also they are primarily built on using up excess bandwidth in existing courses. So it's just an efficient way to enable our students to gain more, like I'm already going too long, not like to enable our students to accomplish more and to be more focused and directed in their time here. So the critical thinking we'll be bringing to you as well as our list for other ideas of certificates we think are occupationally needed, relevant, worth the student's time, and that we can put together with a very low fiscal impact. We're also expanded what we're doing in terms of our 18 hours package. I've discussed this before with you guys. We're looking for even programs that don't want to have a master's degree or any sort of graduate degree, putting together a package of 18 hours of graduate credit that will enable students to become academically qualified to teach adjunct for us or for other institutions throughout the state if they already have a master's degree, or if not, for them to be able to teach dual credit in the high schools, which is another major part of the state of Missouri's blueprint for higher ed, to be able to facilitate dual credit. We started in math, and in my packet directly behind the report, I have a little description that we're bringing out to K-12 meetings throughout the region. This is the first one. We're going to do a math class, but I wanted to let you guys know that we are also moving through academic policies. Our first biology class, graduate level biology class in genomics, which we have a specific area of expertise in. So we're going to try and do it biological sciences, which many high school students want. And then finally, we're going to do it, try to develop courses in graduate courses in history, because those are 3 areas where dual credit's highly desired: math, biology, and history. So maybe in other areas over time, but this is a good way for us to augment our graduate hours as well as sort of do a little pilot run into developing graduate programs. We have several searches going on right now. It's the search season, generally going very, very well with the searches. We are planning in May, and we have the specific tentative date set up, but it's going to be in May. We are planning on an academic signing. You've known about athletic signings for a very, very long time. Athletics just had a very successful one with regard to football recruits, but we're talking about academic signing that sort of replicates the look and feel of an athletic signing, but we would go out to high schools and we would celebrate those students who are graduating who have committed to come to Missouri Southern in a ceremony as part of their awards, into which their parents are invited. We will do it at Joplin this semester, and we will try to extend it to other high schools if it's successful. Should be successful. It's relatively new recruiting support technique in higher ed, but it's worked in other places. So we think that will be an exciting new addition. The Grad Council is making great progress. It's something we really largely put together this year to broadly represent not only programs that offered grad courses and grad programs, but those who wanted to, those who aspired to. So we're making really rapid progress because of great agreement, I think, on a lot of things such as admissions requirements and what it takes to stay in the program and what a program looks like as well. Dental hygiene accreditation is, besides social work, the only other really truly active accreditation right at this moment, and that is going well. Anticipate no problems with that. And then finally, at the bottom, there is a graphic for our spring 16 semester It's Friday gatherings. We had our inaugural and only one It's Friday gathering in the fall. It was very, very successful. It stands for Ideas That Stick, and these are forums specifically intended to promote, to facilitate the sharing of, and to celebrate faculty research. So they're all by faculty, sort of TED Talk style presentations, maybe 20 minutes of presentations, and then some discussion. And so we have 2 coming up this semester, Dr. Joy Dworkin from English and Dr. Conrad Guber from Social Sciences. And so I think that's a very good team building, but also enlightenment event. And with regard to events, I have 2 others listed here. We have our French Film Festival. We were one of less than 20 universities that were selected to host the French Film Festival. Others are Kansas State, University of Chicago, University of Wisconsin. So we're among very, very good company. We're looking to make these not just for French films, but we are building a variety of programming around it, panel discussions and actually culinary experiences and the like. I do have the second page into my handout, the film schedule, if you'd like to come. They will all be in French, but they'll be subtitled as well, and then we will have experts on hand to discuss each of the films. The next page after that is actually David's event, and we were corresponding, and I'm like, well, I want to share this good news in my report, and he's like, well, I'm too humble to do that anyway, but I am actually very excited about it. Grammy-nominated group is coming here, and our singers, David's singers, are invited to open the show to do a pre-opening. I know it's a huge ordeal because every day one of my kids brings a note home from school saying, make sure you bring your kids to this. So I know it's gonna be a big deal, and I will specifically, despite his humility, ask David to talk about it a little bit more because we have gotten really good, I think, regional press for this, and again, always proud of his group. The final thing on my report is that you all probably perhaps recall prior to my arrival there was some discussion about our international business students in the College of Business winning the inaugural international business competition that was sponsored by an organization comprised of all campuses that have SBDCs or SBDTCs. So it's a very, very big ordeal. How do we foster and promote international education? And one of the ways they did it was to say, let's have a case competition. Last year was the first one, and Missouri Southern from the whole nation won the whole thing. It's a team led by Dr. Chris Moose, and it's a very, very great deal. But you're like, is this just beginner's luck? And so early this year, he started with a different team of students. They're doing a case around an organization called Cleveland Whiskey. And Cleveland Whiskey has developed a proprietary distilling technology that allows bourbon to be produced. Alan doesn't think this is like a great idea, but in 24 hours as opposed to decades of being aged in barrels. But they are trying to penetrate to the Singapore market. Yeah, trying to penetrate to the Singapore market. And so the whole case was with this new different product and process in a new international market. How do you enter successfully? Well, once again, we have already been selected this week as one of the top 3 institutions, the final 3 to be invited. The other schools that were invited, the other 2 schools that were invited to come to Newport, Rhode Island to present in April are at least twice our size. Both of the schools are at least twice our size. The last page in my little packet is an article that we put out describing last year's competition, a significant victory. Obviously, to win that twice in a row would be a national import. So I thank you for that. Be happy to address any questions that you have.
Have any questions?
I have a question. On the critical thinking certificate, what are the courses that comprise that? Are they the same for all students at Missouri Southern, or is it within their own discipline?
No, so the way that we have proposed it, and it's not finalized because it has to go through the academic scrutiny, but we have a cornerstone and a capstone, and the cornerstone is a philosophy, critical thinking philosophy course. The capstone is a new course, the only new course we're developing, which is critical reading and critical writing, critical communication. In between, so those are 6 hours, and then we have 9 other hours. 3 of those other hours has to be selected as a communication course, and right now we have a variety of different options, but we're thinking maybe about making it a negotiation course being required. And then they collect 6 hours, or they can select 6 hours from a variety of other courses, maybe a list of 8 other courses. They have to pick 2 of those courses, and those are courses that are in international relations, global problem type courses, global social, demographic, economic problems. And so those two courses focus on the identification and solving of international issues.
So the COM 205 is like, it's called listening and negotiation, is that?
Yeah, like strategic negotiation. We're going to have some issues to work through as an academic institution. For example, the prerequisites. You know, is there any circumstance under which, if this is the one and only course you're going to be taking in international relations, that the prerequisite isn't necessary for you to take this course? Or if it is, we have an issue because now the certificate is more than 15 hours. Now the issue becomes, you know. So, so academically to work through this process and establish some processes is going to be a great thing. And then once we have that framework and foundation, we can just plug others in. We're looking at just some disaster planning, which is something we're very interested in and are disciplinarily pursuing right now as well. It's possible that we could do something in an area where we have a lot of community hope and expectation, a certificate around autism. That would be interdisciplinary as well. So we've brainstormed a list of probably 8 or 9 other areas we feel like we could offer these certificates that are unique and that are in demand. We've already had other faculty come to us and say, what about this one? I've been thinking about this. For example, we had a faculty member come from the geography area to look at something that we could do. And Wendy's been my partner on that, working through. The shell was developed by faculty members, and then we took it and tried to distill it into something that we could make work within our system.
We presently already have the ability, if somebody wants to come in and subject to opening in a class, could take a specific class without going for a certificate.
So look, this is, I probably cannot answer this correctly, but I do know we have models of gaining admission for students that are not seeking admission. But we have to watch that because, for example, we have admissions criteria. So if you let a student come in, particularly in grad, and something our grad council meeting we talked about a couple weeks ago, you have a student who doesn't make the admissions criteria. And they come in and they take course and they say, I'm just interested in learning. And then they get 15 or 18 hours of those courses that they complete successfully. And they're like, well, I'm halfway to the degree, or, you know, I'm there, I can clearly do it. Well, we have an issue, you know, sort of a back door, and they should not be successful if they really are not eligible for admission, but it happens a lot. So we want to be receptive and open to the community, but not create a blatant back door to circumvent regular admissions processes. So for example, in grad school, as we're developing the draft of the handbook, I think that we're going to limit taking 6 or 9 hours of graduate programming until you gain admission to the program to circumvent that, to prevent that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you for your report. We'll move on to our Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management, Darren Fullerton.
Thank you. I'll let you look at the additional items on the report. I do want to say thank you to the board for participating in the ALIS training and point out on your sheet it talks about the next one will be February 25th. We'll be rolling that out for faculty and staff on campus, and there will be another one after spring break. One of the things to make the board aware of, and we'll be reaching out to our students right now, we talked last meeting I think about FAFSA is changing, and I think the federal government, you've seen that they'll be able to use prior year instead of using taxes for the previous year. You can do 2 years worth of taxes when you're filing a FAFSA. One of the changes, the Missouri Department of Higher Education traditionally has set April 1st as a deadline for any state grants or scholarships. With that prior year, that April 1st deadline is now going to go to a February 1st deadline. So we'll be working with admissions, we'll be working with financial aid, working with our current students and future students so that they know starting next year instead of April, that February 1st will be the deadline. There will be a second round that the state has indicated that they may grant if funds are available, but we want to make sure that we get that information out in a timely fashion. Residence halls, were the February 24th to 26th. Our current students will be able to, they can do contracts now, but they can pick their actual room those 3 days at the housing fair. And then March 1st, we go live for new students coming in. And I would just draw your attention to the back page, and I won't go through all the numbers. Some of the numbers we talked about in the budget meeting, the financial aid disbursements, you have a breakdown there of those actual dollars, and a little bit about our payment plan that we talk about in-house. And then also the tentative campus-based aid that we've been notified from the federal government. I will point out the Perkins that I mentioned a couple of meetings ago has been extended for 2017. At that point, if it's not extended beyond that, it would expire at the end of 2017, which would then preclude us from giving those types of loans for those students. And if you remember, Perkins is a program where we have to collect money back from the students in the loan program to reinvest in it, and so that's how that program works. There are opportunities for those students through the TEACH program to get waivers of that and not have to pay that money back, and so that could be an impact on our students as we move forward if it's not reauthorized in a continuing bill or something at the federal level. So with that, I'd entertain any questions.
Well, if there are no questions, we thank you for your report, and we will now call on Faculty Senate President Dr. David Sharlow.
Thank you. Good afternoon. You see my report before you. I sent it to the right Sharon this time, so you'll have that copy there. It looks longer than it is, simply because I put in a few things there for you to see how we've done a couple of things, specifically in regards to charges that we've been given the committees that reside under the Faculty Senate, and most specifically the Academic Policies Committee. You can see there that the current residency requirement was something that we were approached by Dr. Carson and the Academic Affairs, and then we sent that on to the Academic Policies in the form of a charge. It was like a 5-point charge, and then they sent something back to us. They're sort of taking each of these points and looking at them, and then they sent back a recommendation. And you can see what they sent to us, and the Faculty Senate then adopted that residency requirement and approved it, and then we sent it on to Dr. Carson, who I think we'll talk about that a little bit later. But suffice it to say, this process is working, and specifically because of the academic policies has taken on this more comprehensive approach to the issues of dealing with academics, and being less of the gatekeeper of curriculum changes, which has been given to the SCOCs, the School Curriculum Oversight Committees. They've been able to take on a more comprehensive, and so this charge that they got brought back to us, sent back to us, is an example of that. And I can't report on what they've sent back to us on other charges, but we just received some more that we'll talk about in our next meeting. But the process is working, so we're very happy about that. Really that's the things that I would like to highlight mostly. If you look on the back page, you can see some of the other issues that we're dealing with, textbook buyers issues. We've sent that now to the staff senate, so now they're getting to, we're just volleying it around. It's just like a soccer ball. We're kicking it to everybody. So then they're going to report back to us, and at some point here before the end of the semester. And then we just sent a representative to the Missouri Association of Faculty Senates. Dr. John Summerfield went to that this past week. We voted to have somebody on Senate go to those biannual meetings, once in the fall, once in the spring. And then we also approved 3 proposed graduate courses that came to us that I think you'll hear about later as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Oh, I'm supposed to talk about this now? Oh, well, you were talking about it. It's, I'll just say it briefly. The Chanticleer is a fine choral ensemble, all male voices, men singing soprano, alto, and tenor bass. And we are opening for them. Very privileged to do that, and we're doing a master class with them next Friday. So it's quite an honor for us. They are a fantastic ensemble, a lot of fun. If you want a good concert that's free, please come to that concert. But come at 6:30 so you can hear us sing.
Do you have the selections picked out that your group will,
That they will work on us.
that your group will do?
Yes, we have the selections all. It was a new repertoire that we started just this semester. So we have been nose to the grindstone, intense rehearsals. Yes, it's been a lot of fun. So we'll be ready, guaranteed.
Very good. Is there any questions or comments? If not, Dr. Sharlow, thank you for your report, and we will now call on Staff Senate President Elisa Bryant.
Staff Senate is currently working on revising and approving our bylaws. That's a big task that we've taken on since we have grown over the last 2 years. So we're taking that on right now and revising them. We're also working with administrative assistants on the textbooks buyers, and I think we have something to present back to Faculty Senate. So we're going to throw it back at you. And then the compensation survey is ready to go out, and so we will be looking to send that out within the next couple of weeks with the help of our HR department. Are there any questions?
There's no questions. We thank you for your report, and moving on, we'll call on our Student Senate President, Kyle Prisock.
I think it's good to be here today and be able to present to the board. I also want to say thank you to Jake Lang. He's one of our senators who came out today. We've been excited about this semester, about what we can do. We filled the last remaining seats that we're going to fill this semester for student senators. And so we were happy to get those filled, and we had a great selection of applicants. Some own their own businesses, some have done a lot of things in the community. And so we're looking forward to that. We've refurbished some of the comment boxes across campus so we can get some more input from students. Some of those are fantastic. One asked us to make the grass greener. And so we haven't yet figured out how to exactly accomplish that. But we're happy to have so many comments coming in from so many students and so many things they can do. We had somebody told us, just give the freshmen spray paint. Yeah, yeah. But we're happy to be doing that. We're changing some of the ways we look at towards our community involvement. In the past, we've done St. Baldrick's. We will not be doing that this year, in the fact that we weren't happy with the way the attendance was going in the previous years, and so we're going to try to shift that a little bit to where in the future, if we pick something that's charitable or in the community, it stays closer to the community or on campus, that either our senators can get involved with personally, or that organization can partner with us to help put on a better event than what we've done in the past. And then we're also looking forward to some of the things the committees are working on to being brought to Senate. But in addition to that, we're changing, we're kind of rebuilding the way Senate operates and the way that we're giving every one of the executive members and the committee chairs a binder, and they're going to put down exactly what they do, exactly what dates come forward, to where the next Senate's not going to have to rebuild from where they just find themselves, but they'll have something that they can go off of, and they'll have something that they can kind of get them started a lot faster. And so we're looking forward to all of that this semester.
Very good. Are there any questions or comments?
Governor Fleischaker, I would say that due to the interest in the Senate, in the budget meeting and the meetings this morning, we talked about the 15 pages of legislation that affect higher education. Each member of the Student Senate has received a copy of that, and they're looking into that as well to make recommendations back to the administration. So, well, we appreciate that.
Forward to those recommendations. Thank you. Anything else? If not, thank you for your report. I believe we have a budget audit committee proposal that we need to discuss, so I'll call on McCumber to present that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit and Budget Committee met at 10:30 this morning, and we had all the board members that are here today in attendance. I appreciate that very much. I also appreciate the exchange of information that we had this morning. I thought it was really a good meeting. Talked about security plans and got an update on how the budget was progressing and everything like that. So very much appreciated that. We considered 3 proposals this morning and passed those 3 proposals. And those 3 proposals are as follows. The first, subsequent to the receipt or approval of the governor's recommended 6% appropriation increase for fiscal year 2017, the university will not increase in-state tuition. If the approved appropriation increase does not meet or exceed the governor's recommended 6% increase, the Board of Governors hereby reserves the right to authorize the administration to set the in-state and Lion Pride tuition rate at $178.61 per credit hour for fiscal year 2017, as pursuant to Senate Bill 389. This reflects an increase of $1.58 per credit hour. Secondly, authorize the administration to set the out-of-state tuition rate at $357.22 per credit hour for FY 2017. This reflects an increase of $3.16 per credit hour. And number 3, on the textbook rental fee, increase the textbook rental fee to $14 per credit hour per book. This is a $2 per credit hour per book increase. And as such, on behalf of the Audit and Budget Committee, I make the motion that these 3 proposals be accepted.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. McCumber. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a second from Keith. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The motion is approved. And thank you very much. I don't believe we have any other committee reports at this time. So at this time, I would call on President Marble to make a report to us.
Thank you, Darren Flashaker. I'll be brief also because I know we got some things to cover here. The first thing, you have a written report in your packet, which you can read at your leisure. The first item we're dealing with is our budget and legislative priorities, which I know you're familiar with our legislative priorities because we've been talking about those for months. We're continuing to circle around the General Assembly and working on our plan. However, as Darren points out, there's 15 pages worth of other bills up there, probably 20 or 25 bills that deal with something other than funding for higher education. But has some impact on us, perhaps. We are keeping an eye on those as they move through the process, but there's just too many of them to talk about now. Many of them will not see the light of day. Others may come forward. We'll have more on that as the session goes along. However, we are supporting the increase, the core increase that the coordinating board suggested, which was 7%. The governor has offered 6%. We would be delighted to have that. Anything in that neighborhood would be very, very good. And overall, there should be a boost in higher education funding in the state of Missouri. There's no question about that. We've shown you the map that shows all of the surrounding states receive a lot more money than Missouri. Absent that boost at some time in the future, it's going to require some sort of large tuition increase at several universities, including this one. We're going to have to look at, we talked about it before, but we're going to have to keep it on the map. In fact, I put in my report, we're $20 per credit hour below our sister institution, Missouri Western, right now. So this combination effect, we really have two ways to receive funds, state appropriations and tuition. And when you add those two things together, per FTE, we're the lowest funded in the state. So with what we hope to get from state appropriations, will help a lot. If not, then we're going to need this tiny bit that we can raise due to Senate Bill 389. But in the future, we're really going to have to consider a significant increase because, frankly, the state's shifting responsibility from state funding to tuition funding. And during my days, I was talking to Governor, I was talking with you, I guess we were talking earlier about $5 or $6 we were paying. When we were students here, we paid $5 per credit hour to rent books. Now we're talking about just 12, so that really hasn't increased that much. The tuition we paid in those days hasn't increased that much either, as it changed. But in those days, the state paid 70% of the operations of the university.
You're really making me feel old.
Way back in those days.
Well, it has been a while. Check the record. We were here at the same time, nearly the same time. Well, it overlapped. I'm a little older, maybe a year, two. But the point is that now we're what, 37%? Rob, is that the accurate number?
35, something like that.
35. Okay, instead of 70% state funding, we're at 35% state funding with a limit on what we have been, what tuition can do. Do we ever want to raise tuition on students? Absolutely not. But do we want to go out of business? Well, no, that doesn't do students any good either. So we're really going to have to think in the next few years about doing something on the tuition side. We just dealt with the tuition thing a second ago, so I'll skip that little paragraph. But something that we are faced with, I think that we have not talked about, that probably should be on your radar screen, is operating costs. Insurance goes up every year, utilities go up every year, but there's a Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, proposal that could change our costs significantly, in that it would reclassify some people that we have that are salaried into an hourly position, making them eligible for overtime. And some of those people, for example, a recruiter, you have to count the time that person's driving between places to recruit as part of the time. Then when they're doing the evening high school roundtables, that would be overtime perhaps. Time that we don't know when they're sleeping in the motel rooms what that would be. Assistant coaches or interns that are on bus rides from here to Kearney, Nebraska. All those things would be hourly, which we'd have to really rethink how we do those things.
Is that compensation level change?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the compensation level. It could go to $54,000 or something like that.
50,600, something like
Whatever
that.
that number is, it's around $50,000, which is more than some people have had. That could be, and that's a wild card out there that you should just be aware of. We've been to Jefferson City to testify a couple of times. Once with Brad went to testify in higher education appropriations bill, which went very, very well. We were well received. Looks like we're in good shape with what we were asking for, as far as we know. I went with Darren one time to testify on the gun bills. There are a couple, at least 2 I know, maybe 3 now, bills that would allow concealed carry weapons on campus. And the way they're written currently, there's very little restriction on where and how and who could carry those as long as you had a concealed carry permit. In that regard, we would be opposed to that. It just seems like guns don't belong in school. Maybe that's too strong a statement, but I believe in the Second Amendment. I have guns of my own, but it seems like kind of a bad idea. The great game of education, we're making great strides there, I think. Working on a financial scoreboard. Jeff's done a lot of work on that. Appreciate your hard work with that. Also, we're creating a culture committee, which will be made up of 5 individuals from the faculty senate, 5 individuals from the staff senate, and 5 individuals that the administration will pick. That will be in charge really of the training and the ongoing development of the great game. So in many ways, it's going really ahead of schedule. We're doing very well there. According to the folks at the Great Game Business, it seems like we're going slow for us. We get a little impatient, but really we're probably doing, they say it takes 3 to 5 years. We're only a year and a half into it, so I think we're doing pretty well. I had the next one titled Hush Blackwell. Well, Hush Blackwell is legal counsel for the university. Kristen represents legal counsel for the board, but we have legal counsel for the university. Hush Blackwell is a very well-known higher education specialist in Kansas City. They're helping us work on policies for the board, for the university. That was one of the great surprises I had among several, but then we didn't have board policies here. We had bylaws, but no board policies. And so we have been talking with Hush Blackwell for a while about how we want to organize that. And it seems to me that the simplest way is that the board has organizational policy, things that affect the entire organization. So if that's nepotism or whatever, below that it's operational policy. That's where the University Council comes in to make these operational policies. And then the academic policies and all those things are operational. So that's where we're trying to define that document. By next month, Haley Hansen was here yesterday or day before, and Sean Tansey from Hush Blackwell. They plan to be here next month with a policy on policies that will help guide us toward defining what those are. And a couple things here to wrap up with. The coordinating board for higher ed, you know that Dr. Russell announced his retirement. He was announced it in the fall. He was to retire in December, and has stayed on for a couple of months. They did not complete their search successfully, so they're extending the search, and they've named Leroy Wade as the interim commissioner until the search is complete. And I'm not sure what the timetable is on that search. It doesn't seem like they're doing anything at all that I can see, so I'm not sure what they're thinking about. When I'm out on it, I failed when I had it on and slipped off the edge or something, I don't know. As sabbaticals, I sent you, I think I emailed to you the two folks that were very, very happy to submitted terrific proposals for sabbaticals. I don't know how many came to the committee. These went through the committee and then through the Provost office and to me. Tim Klein, Associate Professor of Acting and Directing, will be sabbatical, and Karen Costner, Associate Professor of Psychology. So just wanted to make sure that you got that and that you're aware of what we're trying to do. That concludes my report. I'd be glad to answer questions if you have any.
Any questions or comments?
Dr. Marble, they're inside the packet here.
Inside there? Okay, good.
If not, we thank you very much for your report.
Thank you, Sharon, for putting those in the packet.
At this time, we can take up any old business. I know Dr. Hodson has the political activity policy he wants to report on, so go ahead.
Ready for that? You have a copy of the second draft of the political activity policy in your packet, and this policy has been adjusted based on your feedback not only in the meeting last month, but a couple of you were kind enough to take the time to send suggestions directly to me via email, and that has all been incorporated. You will find the only change to the policy is the creation of a new section 1 with the definition and scope of the policy more clearly laid out than it was in the previous draft.
Are there any questions? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the policy as submitted. Do I hear such a motion? So moved. I have a motion from Mr. Gibson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Flanagan. Any discussion?
Discussion item. Just so I understand, this item, Roman numeral number 1, is the only change?
Yes, sir.
Is it a change in totality, or was it a change?
No, it's a complete addition. There was nothing there. We started in with political participation before.
Very good, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries and the policy is approved.
So we have our very first official organizational policy piece to put in the library.
Yes. Do we have any other old business? If not, we'll move on to any items of new business. I understand that Dr. Carson has some items.
I do, thank you so much. You have the report on curricular proposals from academic fairs, academic policies. Again, as David explained, the way it's been working is if we have an academic issue that requires faculty deliberation, it goes to Faculty Senate. Faculty Senate assigns it to the appropriate faculty committee. That faculty committee takes it under consideration, makes recommendations, goes back to Faculty Senate, then to academic affairs, and then to you all for consideration. So it's thoroughly vetted by the time it gets here. Also, as David said, we have tons of proposals that are outstanding. Some really significant issues that are gonna impact sort of our thinking, the way we have historically done things. A lot of those requests that we have for consideration are really, I think, outward focus and looking to better position us for the future. Others are a little bit more defensive in nature. And what I mean by that is how can we make sure that we're being competitive with other institutions? There will be one we'll be taking up on Monday with regard to how do we preserve our ability to offer both Chinese and Japanese as Asian languages in this era of declining enrollment. So a whole variety, but it has worked very, very well. We've had some very wonderful discussions. One that didn't require a whole lot of discussion and deliberation was the one on residency that is before you today. We have simply removed a couple of words. It doesn't seem in its actual technical manner very significant. It was significant, and that is when we say 30 of the last 36 hours, the historical policy is now just 30 hours at Missouri Southern. Puts great burden on us as an institution to make sure that we are only awarding degrees to those students where we can ensure and validate their quality. We have mechanisms in place to do that. Feel very good about it. We have a variety of other protections, but again, changing the residency requirements is really reflective of the nature of what the past students are taking in higher ed these days, right? They're not going to one school and staying in the same school for 4 years and graduating anymore. It's much, much more fragmented in its nature, and we were gathering credits here and credits there and so on, and we were really doing, I think, or had the potential to do a good bit of student harm by not altering this. So it was very cohesive. There was really no concern. Everyone understood. So I present that to you for your proposal with the rationale. The only other academic policy change we have is just a course that lingered beyond the last set that you all proposed. It's a histology course that's taken by dental hygiene students, and we simply changed the student learning objective, which is probably already more than you want to know about that. But they are both here before you, the two reports and the two academic policy items we're asking for you to consider.
Okay, do we want to take those up together or separately? I'll entertain a motion either way.
I'll make a motion to accept both.
We have a motion to accept both those policy proposals. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. This is a Plotnick. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The motion's carried. I do have a question. Given the volume of all these matters that have been referred, are they taken up in the order presented, or is there prioritization given when to certain proposals, or how does that usually work?
Well, you answer. Well, the way that we didn't really have like, okay, you got to send these in a particular order. We just said these are the bullet points that sort of dealt with a particular area, and so then we just sort of started, and we decided the faculty senate executive committee that as they came in, we'd take care of them because the process was working in a positive way, and so we didn't get too bent out of shape if they didn't come in all together.
We send what we can to staff senate, and whatever they won't take, we keep, and they take the easiest ones. And
right.
Thank you.
I think that we've had enormous pressure on the committee this year because the structure is very new, and also because we're implementing the online catalog called Ecologue, which I hope to be able to share with you. We're making very, very good progress on that. But it will great. There'll be no more old-fashioned bulletins, like we've always had up to now. But the whole integrated system is going to be much more helpful to students to be able to track where they need to go and what they need to do before they get there. This last semester we've simultaneously been trying to get a bunch of courses passed so that we can get them in the original upload of the catalog while simultaneously trying to actually produce our last print in case there's a technological glitch. We want redundancies. So I don't anticipate it will always be this just huge volume, I hope.
Yeah, we hope.
Thank you. I also have apparently the yours to lose policy that you wanted to discuss.
I recognize y'all are probably tired of hearing me talk today. I just have like 9 more reports before we finish. when we start talking about these meetings, we always try to deliberate exactly what it is that might be of most interest to you in any particular month, and recognizing that next month we are going to meet again. And while this is a program that you have heard a great deal about, many of you very kindly even came to the MOU signing in December, there has been a great deal of progress made on all fronts science-wise, on the Reynolds Hall renovation and where we are with that, but on this as well. It's been a very truncated timeline, but one that is urgent that we really address. And so we thought it might be a good use of your time to give you, first of all, even if you were with us at the MOU in December, what we have done since then. And if you weren't with us, and maybe by now we're just assuming you all are very familiar with what's happened so far, just a little brief timeline and history about where we've been and where we are going. So it is yours to lose, Advanced Medical School Acceptance Program. There is an article and a chart that is just fortuitous and happens to coincide in the copy that is with you there. There is a great deal of interest in this particular program. When you look at where this program came from, if you all have read the copy of the J magazine this month, also fortuitous is that talked about Joplin innovators and those that have making, blaze paths and make a significant impact. Very first one was Dr. McIntyre. And in that article, he talks about the fact that for 20 years, it has been sort of the community's desire to increase the population of physicians that would serve the specific rural needs of the citizenry. And the whole dream of bringing a medical school to the Joplin area was really just to increase the availability of supply and the quality of healthcare to the region. And in many ways, what is happening here is sort of the fruition of that really decades-long collective dream. I wanted to make sure that you all were sort of aware of the holistic and synergistic picture between what we're talking about with Missouri Southern and KCU. For sure, you've heard of the yours to lose, and you know about the guaranteed admissions, and I'll talk in a little bit more detail about that later on, but that is just the first piece in the puzzle, clearly the most important piece at this particular time, and the one that requires the greatest lead time for us to initiate, but that is just one piece always. Since conceptualization, it's just been one part of what we would like to do to capitalize on the relationship for the good of the community between us and KCU. So here are other areas. Again, you have probably heard us talk about these in fragmented ways or one at a time. But these are the things that we really are actively working toward now that we've made good progress on the curriculum and the admission standards. The first is shared faculty. That is through joint appointments. And again, the idea is very much that if Kansas City, KCU, who was looking to hire 20 faculty to work here full time, but it may not be, while they hire a full-time embryologist, they may not actually need the instructional capacities of a full-time embryologist. And if we can use that where we can trade that for somebody who's going to teach physiology because they have greater demand at KCU, we would like to do that. Of course, that would go through a quality vetting, and the faculty who receive the joint appointments would have to be jointly reviewed by both institutions. We have a very active working team, our leadership team here, and we meet with theirs regularly in a digital way. And so we are looking at sort of the continuation and formalization of this academic leadership team and deciding things like this, also in deciding research priorities. KCU is specifically beginning to target on their faculty-specific research expertise. And they're going through the process right now of deciding in which particular domains would they like to be global leaders in terms of research. And we are part of that process as well to figure out where could we really create synergies by focusing on ongoing, plaguing, significant medical problems of today. Where could we work together? Student enrichment is very significant. They do make global trips, and we make global trips, and they have speakers, and we have speakers, and they have tutoring programs, and we have tutoring programs. So looking for ways to integrate those and to piggyback on each other and to make sure there's not duplication of effort, but perhaps just extension of the breadth and depth of services we can offer to our students in terms of making sure they are successful in staying on track, as well as making sure that they have a whole very, very rich campus experience at both places outside of the classroom is of critical importance. This medical school preparation and actual medical school itself is not really just going to class. It's an entire lifestyle that is very, very encompassing. And so we want to make sure we pay attention to the academic as well as the other needs of the students. And then shared facilities. I mean, we have a cadaver lab. They will have a cadaver lab. We're not talking about them needing what we have, but are there times when we can have certain demonstrations here, teaching demonstrations here, and their students come over because, well, it's great for our students to be together, to learn together, but also it gives us the chance to create mentoring opportunities and for our faculty to get to know each other as well. And so all of these things we are working out. Another component of shared facilities is their students being able to access our rec center and a variety of other things that just don't make sense for them to replicate over there at their particular campus. So it's a very ongoing, evolving, and really functional relationship. Here's a little of the timeline. I know there's a lot of questions about it, and we have moved so far so fast, but it was really in July, this past summer, we began to conceptualize the Years to Lose program. We went into the relationship with KCU and said, you are coming to Joplin and we want to support you, and we want to be friends and we want to be partners, but what is it that we can do that is special and different that cannot be replicated other places because of our relationship and our proximity? And out of this was born the Yours to Lose program. It's not a replication of a program that exists anywhere else, and there is no such program that exists anywhere else, but it was born out of the collaboration that we had between the two institutions. In July 2015, we probably didn't even begin to really coin the name that really is symbolic of exactly the point we wanted to convey until a couple months after that. In December, and again, thank you all if you're able to come, we did have the signing of the MOU where KCU, Chancellor and Provost came here to Missouri Southern, and we had the ceremony. And so since then, this is what we've been busy doing. Working on two things that are very important: the curriculum, what does the curriculum look like, and then the admission standards, because high school counselors regionally, statewide, nationally are very, very, very interested in making sure that they can retrofit if they need to their curriculum so that the students become eligible. And so literally probably somebody on this campus feels a call every day about what are we doing with these things, what are they looking like? Well, for us, it's been a process of really learning the state requirements of what the K-12 system requires, and also benchmarking exactly what our partner schools and likely feeder schools do in terms of how many years of math, and do they do chemistry or do they do physics, because that's very different. So we've been meticulously looking at what is done to see if we can make that work so as not to elongate or create problems in anybody's K-12 matriculation. But we do have a lot of good progress on that. The admission standards are obviously going to be separate and distinct from what it takes to get into Missouri Southern, and they're going to be much higher. We're probably not going to couch them as admission standards, but more an admissions profile, so that we are able to look at students who closely approximate but maybe don't meet every one of the criteria. But there are some assumptions that we have undertaken in developing this, and that is, we know that we have a responsibility to ensure that we believe students are positioned to succeed in medical school when we admit them here because of the nature of the program. So there will be pretty high standards. There will also be, and I'm not going to share them with you today because they're not quite final, and but there are going to be traditional academic admission standards, and there's going to be a writing narrative process, and there's going to be an actual interview process to gain admission into the cohort. The curriculum is something we've been working on simultaneously, and there's a very, very, very science-heavy curriculum. When we had our last meeting with KCU, they said the original curriculum we proposed probably had more science than 90% of the students that they are currently admitting. Again, it is our intent to make sure the students are completely in every way poised to be successful. What we are working with right now, and you have probably heard us talk about it, our goal was to create the entire 4-year curriculum and a 3-year program if possible, as a possible option, accelerated and compressed. And we know with certainty that that is possible. What we don't know is what will be this mental health state of the students as they move through. So how do we make it more balanced? How do we make sure we don't burn out students so that the time they depart Missouri Southern, they are just too fatigued to do well in medical school? That's kind of where we are on that right now. So looking at 3- and 4-year options. Fall of 2017 is actually when KCU will open their doors, but we will not have, because of academic policies and new courses and other issues I'll talk about in a moment, we will not have our first full cohort going through our yours to lose full program until the fall of 17. We won't have the new courses in place by the fall of 16 to be able to put them through. So we have that period between the fall of 17 when we will start our true yours to lose program and fall of 20 when they will complete, if they complete in 3 years, to have transitional admission criteria. So we'll have to look at some way, and it's probably going to be individual. It's definitely going to be joint with KCU. Students who closely approximate the desired curriculum, who closely approximate the academic achievement, and we'll go through those probably with a 5-person team representing KCU and us student by student to identify. It is our intent for the fall to identify 25 students in a cohort for the first year that we're going to kind of try to retrofit until we get the full until we get the opportunity to have the full students go through the regular program.
So when you're fully operational, you'll start at the sophomore level?
No, freshman.
Freshman. Okay, thank you.
The summer before the junior high school graduation year, our plan calls for students to come in for like a little orientation boot camp the summer before their freshman year and really hit the road very, very hard the first year.
Paula, is the number 20 or 25?
The number of guaranteed admission spots is 25. So there are 25 students we will admit to Missouri Southern, and simultaneously they will be admitted. However, we are going to have a larger cohort. We're going to have a cohort of 48. So there'll be 25 guaranteed admits and 23 alternatives.
Paula, is it UMKC or KCU?
KCU.
And they're
KCU and B used to be. Yeah, UMKC is different. UMKC is the institution with which we have the dental school relationship. Okay. And KCU is
great,
the medical school.
Paula, assuming any of these students decided they wanted to go to another medical school other than KCU, is there any reason to think they wouldn't be able to go to any other?
In our discussions, we have clearly and explicitly articulated with KCU and with ourselves that if students successfully complete this program, that they would be eligible and welcome probably by any medical school in the United States. And that is our goal, to prepare them for any medical school. KCU well recognizes that, and again, has been very good partners with us. We do currently have a very successful pre-med program with very, very high pass rates, very high acceptance rates as well. The difference between our traditional program and this program is really the enriched experiences that they have going through, not just in the sciences, but in the liberal education as well. But yes, indeed, there is no obligation for them to go to KCU. When they get out, and everyone knows that. You know, everyone agrees to that and recognizes that that may not be their choice 3 years later, 4 years later.
Dr. Carson, but if I remember right, there's a tremendous incentive for them to go on to KCU because of the guaranteed acceptance without any testing.
Yeah, there's no MCAT testing, there's no admissions interview. There is no required narrative. You just finish and you go right there. So in addition to the academic competition that you don't have to face, it is the social pressure and the application and the anxiety associated with finding out if you're admitted or not that is completely alleviated. One of the discussions we've had is that to go through this curriculum, you will simply not have the time and bandwidth to be in the honors program. Our honors program students are incentivized with scholarships, whereas we're not looking necessarily at this point at definitive scholarships for all these students. But the reward for these students is that guaranteed admission. You know, that is sort of the golden ring for these students at the end of the day. And in addition to the very enriched, unique, unparalleled pre-med preparation experience that they'll have here.
I have a question. So you have 25 guaranteed spots, but you said you're admitting how many in the cohort?
48.
Okay, so what happens to the remaining students? What is considered success for them?
Yep. And you'll see this a little bit later on. The reason that we're including 48 is one, because we can, because our lab capacity allows that. So it's not going to be problematic for us to be. We will know the 25. There will be 25 accepted, and there will be 23 alternates. They will know that from day one. And so long as the original 25 meet the academic continuation standards, it won't be in any competition or risk or anything else for those students. The benefit to the other 23 is a couple. One, the enriched experience that I'm about to describe. So it is very, very unique curriculum. It's very unique outside of the curriculum opportunities they will have to interact with current medical school, with Nobel Prize laureates, for example. Casey's bringing a Nobel Prize winner, so they'll have special invitations to those kind of events. So it will be a much more enriched experience, intense, but enriched experience that they will have. And then we also know this, that if they take this rigorous science education and they are in here and we are facilitating, we're giving them priority registration to these special science classes. We're carefully sequencing these special science classes that probably really any medical school would take them, even if they have to take the MCAT because of this preparation.
There's going to be a bunch of these 23 students that take the MCAT and end up right next to the 25 that's there. Because they're going to go through the same class.
There is actually, whenever we were going through some contingency and scenario analysis with KCU, and Provost Dubin was here on our campus and asked his team, if 48 students went through this curriculum and completed it successfully and met our requirements, and we have to take 25, how many do you think we would take? They're like 46, 47, maybe 48. So they would be very, very pleased to get all 48 of these students. Okay, there are certain curricular assumptions that I wanted to make very explicit to you all as we went through, because it may help address some of our thinking when you'll see what we're doing with the other curriculum. One, we take it as a very, very significant and sacred privilege that when we admit students to Missouri Southern, we are admitting them to medical school. And we are putting our stamp of confidence that if they can complete our curriculum, they can successfully complete medical school. And so you will see there is many high expectations in academic rigor. We want to make sure that academically, intellectually, technically, socio-emotionally, that they are able to succeed. And that was very important to us because we're partners with KCU, and our failure will result in a failure for them and vice versa. So we have to make sure that we recognize each other's needs and expectations from the get-go. We also recognize that science is very important, very heavily weighted, not just in science, but I'm going to say, and mathematics too. So it's a very kind of Reynolds Hall curriculum, if you will, but there are other things that are important, equally important, I'm going to say, and that is our collective belief, and that isn't critical thinking, interpersonal communications, and a variety of other things. So while this program has significantly more science than almost any other pre-med program that exists, We very carefully considered the support courses and contextualization of those that surround the science courses, and we spent as much time on those as we did anything else. And then we wanted the accelerated and compressed curriculum. We wanted that not just so they could get to life quicker and they could get to practice quicker, but we wanted to mimic the pace and intensity of medical education. And the best way to do that and to make sure there's no shell shock or burnout when they get to medical school is to start them whenever possible on the accelerated, compressed components of courses here. So in addition to the heavy load of science courses, there are a couple of very unique curricular options. We are going to sequence the science sometimes in 8-week sessions during the academic year. The summers, we first started talking about them, we used the term science-free summer, but we weren't sure of the interpretation of that, so we changed it to enrichment summers. We're looking at grouping the gen ed courses in the summers, and not only grouping them so we can continue to maintain the cohort and the camaraderie of the cohort, but we are looking to contextualize them as well. We're also looking for international opportunities in the summer. KCU has a significant outreach program in Africa. We actually have a student trip for study abroad that's looking at Africa for this summer, if that program makes, but others as well. There is a required modern language, and it doesn't have to be Spanish, but we are developing a medical Spanish class because that is the language most demanded. We are developing communication class that emphasizes not just traditional oral presentations, but empathetic communication that focuses very much on nonverbal communication and communicating across different levels of socioeconomic groups. And then other content areas, we have a medical sociology class and a medical literature class. So it is American literature, but it's, for example, American literature that is rooted in materials that are very much focused on in the healthcare environment. We have in our English recruiting, in a writing, it was a writing position, a creative nonfiction position. Both of the candidates, actually knowing we were doing this, presented selections in their teaching demo on medical writing, how to facilitate and understand and use medical writing in a medical education. Very interesting. And then medical art. How do we look at art history, at art appreciation, but be able to use that to bridge? There is a good body of research that we have been looking at that talks about when you look at a piece of art, can you interpret it? Can you make sense of it in a medical context? And if so, can that help you to be a better physician? So here are the yours to lose criteria for continuation. 3.5 GPA in sciences and 3.5 overall GPA at Missouri Southern, and everything. This may change, and everything in this program may change as we look and as we evolve. And I think the goal is for us to move to a much more competency-based model. KCU is a competency-based medical school where you have to demonstrate that you can do and understand what you're doing before you move on. So you have to demonstrate that you understand renal functioning before you can move on to another system, and it's not just a multiple choice paper and pencil test. We would like to, over time, to develop a comparable assessment, determination of competency, but for right now, this is where we are starting. And again, it's very important to recognize that it's not just about the sciences. So the GPA in the other areas is just as significant as the GPA in sciences, because we recognize that to create an optimal physician, they don't just need to know the science, they need to know about the patient and the patient's context as well.
The KCU Years to Lose program grew out of the partnership between KCU and Missouri Southern, and KCU's desire to create a unique program with Southern. In this program, KCU guarantees Missouri Southern 25 seats in the medical school class in Joplin. Qualified incoming freshmen engaged in an enriched and accelerated pre-medical curriculum here at Southern. Students who successfully complete this program have a guaranteed seat in medical school without taking the MCAT.
We at the Department of Art and Languages are excited for the Yours to Lose program. this medical school will allow so many different areas on campus to be able to collaborate in order to make a well-rounded product.
The humanities have been an integral part as part of medical training and practice for quite some time, but really for the last half a decade it has been lost, and a lot of programs are reintroducing it into their curriculum.
They can be right here and have support, and we know that medical school can be tough. So to me, I think that's a real plus for Missouri Southern. They have their family here and support, and they're going to go through medical school, and then if they want to, they can actually serve in this area. So I think it's a win-win situation.
It's kind of nice because like right out of high school, I get to jump right into medical school, and I wanted to special in orthopedics, and I was already going to do my basics in MSSU, but I was going to transfer to UMKC. But then I heard about like Joplin getting their medical school, and it's nice, so I'd be right there, pretty much in town, and just drive to school.
It's a huge deal for Joplin, and as well as the Kansas City school itself. They're going to have a nice representation from Missouri Southern as far as students that are getting their pre-professional degree.
Given that you're already admitted to medical school before you start at MSSU, much of the anxiety associated with am I going to get into medical school or not, or where will I go, that's taken away. Gives you more opportunity to be successful at your day-to-day class experience and to life in general. You don't have to fret about it.
We are currently finalizing the application process and the curriculum for the KCU Years to Lose program. We are so excited about this partnership with KCU and for the future of medical education in Joplin.
We just brainstormed about what we were gonna do for you guys to be most contemporary last week, and it was fabulous, Brad, working with your team. So the last issue we could ask a lot about is the high school partners. We have identified joint with KCU some high school partners. The high school partners were identified for these purposes, and I wanted to make that very explicit. What we are looking to do is to extend the pipeline in terms of how we cooperate, how we work together, how we just support each other down to the high school level, because this is what we want. We want to make sure that we have the infrastructural supports for a student to be successful, not just at the time they enter Missouri Southern, but at the time that they enter high school, if this is their known career plan. We also want to make sure that students are taking the proper and most the optimal dual credit courses in the high school level that will help them be successful for us. So these are the reasons I also want to be very, very clear that while we have identified this initial set of cohort high schools, this is really just to get us started. And we are intended to expand that to all the high schools that want to be partners with us and to make sure that their students are successfully prepared to and have a really facilitated pathway to medical school. And so I thank you for that update. Again, things are moving very fast. I know we talk about this almost every month, but there are significant changes almost every month. So I appreciate very much your attention and your support for this initiative for us.
One thing I might just point out there is that we're talking about 48 students per year. So the already overcrowded Reynolds Hall, that's why we're asking for $10 million to expand. We really need it because it's going to put more pressure on an already crowded building. We're renovating as much as we can, but we need more space.
Are there any questions or comments regarding Carson's report?
I've got one more question about the 25 that are admitted. Say you have some that don't make your 3.5 GPA. Are the remaining students ranked when they come into school, or how will it be determined what spots?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. So are we gonna rank them from 1 to 48? Our thinking right now is no, we divide them into 2 camps. And so we have those that are the top 25 guaranteed on this admission profile. And I will share that with you at some point. Again, we just don't wanna tie ourselves too tightly down. For the others, for the alternates, we could rank them incoming. So we could say, you are number 26, this is your spot. But on the other hand, we felt like maybe it would be more optimal to consider all the information we have up to right now. So who looked like 26 a year and a half ago may not look like 26 anymore. So should we use all available relevant information up to the last moment we can to make that replacement decision? Maybe so. And that's our thinking right now, but subject to evolution. You know, it's just really, we're thinking this is the best practice to start, and then we just work together with the team to say, no, this is not really optimal, but no, we're not planning on ranking when there's availability that we would get with KCU team and decide who's the replacement for that.
So that assessment would be made after they did this whole program?
It would be made at the time a student self-identifies as dropping out. And we imagine that's going to happen throughout the curriculum, not at the end.
Is the 48 limitation because of our limited capabilities, that's the most we feel we can take at this particular time?
So I think that because KCU is going to be committing resources to our students as well. So they want to co-teach some of the classes. They want to have enrichment activities. They want our students to be mentored by their students. They did not want an unlimited number. In many ways, they were like 25 is good. And I'm like, 25 is good if I can guarantee 25 will complete, but I can't. So, 50 is better. But we ended up at 48 really, quite frankly, because there is very specific limitations on lab size. And one of the great things that we have, for example, is to offer them the cadaver lab experience. Normally it's a dissection experience. It may have to be pro-section, but the fact of the matter is we can't run any more. We can't run any more through the existing cadaver lab, and we're limited to the number of cadavers we can acquire and we can respectfully house. So I'm gonna say it's kind of both, if that's a fair answer.
What an opportunity this is. What an opportunity. If, this isn't something we're reading about that's happening in a populous center of 1 million people. This is happening at home. I mean, it's right here, and it's going to have a huge impact on students who want to be doctors, and in turn, it's going to have a huge impact on our area. If you could look backwards in time and go back 15, 20 years ago, would we ever thought anything like this would have been possible? But a lot of hard work from people to get this med school coming this direction, and then a lot of hard work with this institution. What an opportunity.
What's the history with the name, Yours to Lose?
Yeah, Yours to Lose. So just to be very, very frank, you said you're coming in this community. We as Missouri Southern want to do everything that we can to support you. But we want a special deal. Is that fair? I can say that. We want a special deal with you. We want something that we can use to advance our institution and to create more student interest and support for our institution. And so we want to be special partners for you. We want you all to be special partners with us. And what does that look like? And that discussion went on for a couple of months. I'm going to say maybe 3 months, going back and forth. And it's like, that's not a special deal. You know what I mean? That's a generic deal. We want a special deal. So, and they're like, well, we need this from you. Can you guarantee that? It's like, well, let's see if we can guarantee that. So at the end of the day, I think what was very unique and innovative, and KCU is totally committed to being the first to introduce everything in innovative medical education. They're very, very committed to that. So they always want to be at the leading edge of good pedagogy and effective medical education. And so they very much wanted the students who, in our special deal, the students to be alleviated from worry about certain things so they could really focus on preparing for and not applying for medical education. It's like, that sounds like a great deal because our students will benefit in that. So there have been many times yours to lose has been questioned as being negative, but it's very intentional. It was something they very much wanted. They think it conveys exactly the spirit that when you're a freshman in college, you have earned this, and you will keep it so long as you keep it. And the rules will be very clear and very fair, but you have to show that you're able to maintain the standards and keep up with the curriculum to get through. And so they wanted that sense of pure communicative conveyance that this is you earned it, don't mess it up. And so in many ways, the negative connotation that has been addressed was strategic, really. It's very unique. There's no other program that's called it. There's lots of advanced admissions to law school and vet school, a lot of programs all over the nation. We looked at all those, but if you Google yours to lose, it's only here. You know, this is, again, part of and reflective of the very special, unique deal.
I think you glanced over here when you were saying that. We did
But
a lot of
the special deal.
There's a lot of discussion, and we wanted a unique program.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that this is somehow negative, you know, yours to lose, is not really that. It is an intentional point that we're trying to make with students coming in, that this is important and you need to focus right now. And that was something KCU came up with that I think we agree with wholeheartedly, actually, whenever we thought it through. It's time, this is a serious deal. Now, along with that is that we understand in the 25, moving through, some may decide that they don't want to be doctors exactly. They want to be a nurse practitioner, or they want to be a nurse anesthetist or other things. So get ready. One of these days we're going to be coming to you with other programs that are allied to this, that are support to this. So students might veer off in a different direction, but have a very healthy professional opportunity. But the yours to lose thing was something we debated about that quite a bit. Does that put a negative spin on it, or does it just a real wake up call, to the people entering? And I think you can't possibly say a year later that I didn't understand this is pretty serious. Even the name's pretty serious.
It's not a warm and fuzzy curriculum, I mean, it's not going to be a little walk in the park. But again, what we all recognize we're doing is preparing physicians who will take care of our parents or our children, and it's got to be right from day one. It's got to be right.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Governor Fletcher,
Go ahead.
One comment, and I whispered it to Alan, but that commercial is very powerful. Again.
Should say thank you. Bryant, stand up there, and Cassie.
Yeah, Bryant's so rough.
This is a great job. Thank you.
The Super Bowl commercial was really good too.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's terrific. Well, we certainly express thanks to all those who participated in that. The program is tremendous, and we're looking forward to its actually implementation. So, thank you again. Is there any other new business? If not, I believe we have need to have an executive session, and we need to have a vote by a roll call vote to approve that. So I guess Sharon, if you would call the roll call as to having a closed session here.
Tracy Flanagan.
Yes.
Jim Fleischaker.
Yes.
Michael Franks, absent. Bill Gibson.
Yes.
Steve Hankins.
Yes.
Allison Hirschway.
Yes.
Mitch McCumber.
Yes.
Anita Oplotnik.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we will adjourn to whatever room we're going to have.
It'll be brief. We won't take care of the ladies. What room are we going to? 343.
So we're, Casey, you're still